Well, welcome back to our program. You're listening to the Defense of America broadcast. This is your host, William B. Strong. And as always, so much to discuss, but so little time, so many issues. We cover big issues of the week and from all angles and all political perspectives, trying to unite America, not divide it. And as usual, I'm bringing in one of our infamous panel members. Let's see if he's out there. Bob, are you out there in America tonight?
I am.
Are you hiding in your bunker, Bob?
Yeah, I am, yes.
It looks like I can see the cement wall. From what I can see, it's several inches thick. So you may need that wall tonight, given the subjects we're going to talk about, which are controversial in nature, Bob. But from both sides, there's two different perspectives on these things. And the first one that we're going to discuss tonight, Bob, is the Durham Report. Now, I wonder how many people in America basically ever heard of John Durham, ever heard of his report, or if they've just heard about the Russian hoax. But we're going to explore that a little bit tonight, and I'm sure you've got some comments to make on that. But first of all, Bob, let me just start off with who John Durham is. Okay, John Durham was the special counsel who led the investigation into the potential misconduct in the FBI's Trump-Russia probe. And he's basically kind of made a career out of investigating very high-profile type corruption or potential corruption investigations. In a 300-page plus report, the Trump administration appointee, basically Durham appointed him, determined that the FBI should never have launched an investigation into the connections between Trump's campaign and Russia during the 2016 election. And I want to play a short clip. I want to share this with our viewers out there, and then we're going to bring you in and get your comments on this.
Okay.
300 pages. So I read the executive summary and some of the key sections, and we pulled out what we thought were the most important takeaways from the Durham Report. For those who don't remember, the Durham Report was the report to oversee the Mueller report, and which was then a response to the Crossfire Hurricane investigation.
Investigate the investigators.
Investigating the investigators who are the investigators of the president. And I know that this can just seem absolutely maddening. Let's just start with the very basics of it. All comes back to Russiagate. What was Russiagate? It has now become an all-encompassing term. I think at its core, it was this. Donald Trump and the Trump campaign, members of the Trump campaign, conspired with the Russian government, both through monetary and political purposes, to damage the Hillary Clinton campaign. That included an allegation that they were helping coordinate WikiLeaks, not true. That they were helping coordinate other leaks, not true. That they were helping coordinate Facebook ads to help sway, also not true. But that was it at its core. And it had, different sub elements like
What's happening?
Okay, Bob, you still there?
Yeah. Okay, there was some quiet there, so I didn't know what was happening.
Got a little technical problem here. Hang on a minute. Okay, Bob, you back?
I am.
Bob. Okay, Bob. We're having a few storms here in the area, so it's creating a little bit of havoc here, but that's okay. Bob, given that clip I just played, what's your thoughts on this Durham investigation between and the Hillary take and the Trump take on this whole matter?
Well, that's a lot. I have taken a lot of notes concerning the report, and there were 306 pages, so obviously I didn't read the report. this was clearly a conspiracy, flat out a conspiracy between the Democrat Party with the Democrat operatives inside the FBI and other agencies. I mean, that's what it was, and they coordinated with Hillary Clinton, and they all pretended like they didn't see the truth, which was nothing was there, and they proceeded to do that. And the Mueller case was also ladled with anti-Trumpers, and even they couldn't find anything against Trump. And then the Durham case, having worked with these, not him personally, but people of his ilk, I knew nothing was going to come of this, as far as actual important indictments, not peripheral people who nobody cares about. And so I knew that nothing was going to happen. And I said it quite a while ago to others. I said, nothing's going to come of this because he's just dragging it out. Some say he dragged it out so the statute of limitations had expired for many of the violations. So
it was about 4 years, right? 4 years.
Yep. And there's generally a 5-year statute of limitations, for criminal cases in the federal government. I mean, there's not every violation, but for these. And so it looked like they were stretching it out. I tend to believe that was part of his plan. It doesn't take 4 years to do this. If it's something of this kind of nature, where a presidential candidate, then a president, was being maligned, and basically these people were seditionists trying to take out a candidate and then the president. And it doesn't take 4 years. If you have all the resources, you could go much faster, having done cases that in the federal sphere.
Bob, what do you believe was accomplished? What do you think the major accomplishments were then in this 4-year investigation on this matter? What would you say are the top two takes from this investigation?
Well, from the Democrat side, keep in mind that at no time do any Democrats have to pay for anything they've done. So there's nothing that stops them from doing it in the past or in the future. So they tried to keep Trump from being elected. They came somewhat close, but not close enough. That failed. So they tried to bring him down with 2 indictments. And I say it is a group of people. I mean, it is a conspiracy, a flat out, absolute conspiracy of Democrats. And they, the indictments didn't bring him down, but he was so dirty by all of this stuff that he finally succumbed in the election, which many, including myself, believe that was stolen. So they won. It took longer than they'd hoped for, but they were also able to obstruct most of the things that he tried to accomplish while he was president. The border wall was one of the most important things that they kept blocking the building of the wall with all kinds of lawsuits and actions, etc. I mean, there's a lot to say, but that's the summary of it.
Now, when you say conspiracy, and many Republicans in the GOP obviously agree with you on that, conspiracy is a pretty strong allegation to make against any group of individuals, much less the opposing political party. Durham did not conclude in any way that there was a conspiracy that I'm aware of. An organized conspiracy that went after Trump. He didn't reach that conclusion. Why do you think he didn't reach that conclusion? Do you feel that the conspiracy was so well hidden and covered up that he couldn't find the evidence to support such a conclusion?
Well, there's 2 issues. There's a criminal conspiracy and there's a general conspiracy of people conspire, 2 or more people acting in furtherance of an action. And so, yes, they did conspire to do this. Now, whether it met the requirements of a criminal case, which I feel it did, but Durham's job was to pretend like he was doing something, to put out a report. He put out his report. He goes, well, there were things done. Doesn't mean it was criminal, but things were terrible. They were awful. It was so mealy-mouthed. Most people were outraged because if this were Republicans doing that, no way would that report come out that way. We wouldn't even be at this report. They would have been destroyed long ago by the Democrat Party.
Okay. Obviously, when this report came out, the Democrats and other media outlets like CNN, MSNBC, no surprise, all debunked it. They said there was nothing in it of any surprise, new value, and basically dismissed the entire thing as a sham over the last 4 years that gave Mr. Durham a pretty nice fat paycheck along with his staff of investigators. I think the troubling part for me in all of this is we see a continued division between these two political parties, of not only division, but pure hatred towards each other, which is not good for this country. So my question is, we perform these investigations and Trump and the GOP kind of applaud it. The other side dismisses it, shoves it to the side. So what do we end up with? And most importantly, what is the American public, who doesn't really know who John Durham is, doesn't know much about an investigation that was going on for 4 years? What are they to believe beyond we don't know the truth in this country anymore?
Well, the Democrats were expected to try to, their job, again, part of this effort was to as they have in the past, during all these years, for 4 years, I believe it was, 3 years, whatever it was, the Russian collusion hoax went on. They lied. They said they had facts they didn't have. They lied. So they're lying now. When they say nothing came of this, absolutely. They were exposed as being fraudulent. The entire investigation was fraudulent. It was not true. So they come out and go, oh yeah, this was nothing. Well, I agree with them that there's nothing new, because I knew this was fraudulent from pretty much the beginning. So, I mean, and so with this whole thing is that just like the Mueller case, like, hey, I said, well, nothing's going to come of this, and it didn't. And because there's nothing there. Because if there was something there, they would have done something with it, but they didn't do anything. They didn't charge Trump with anything, and they didn't charge any of his official people with collusion with Russia to enhance the Trump campaign. It was all nonsense. Just like the COVID situation, they lie, and it's turned out to be what the conservatives said all along. A lot of it was fraud. We won't diverge today too much, but I'm just saying their pattern is to lie. Whenever they speak, I assume they're lying, so I don't pay too much attention to their points. I mean, I'll hear what they have to say, and then I'll laugh because it's so obviously fake.
Yeah, some of my takeaways on this whole thing, I would have to summarize in the following points. One is, the FBI had little or insufficient evidence to even launch an investigation regarding Trump and Russian collusion. I think that's one of the takeaways that Durham had from that report as well. And in that regard, I wish, and I haven't read the 300 pages and don't plan to, but I wish that they would have drilled down more on if that were the case. And I believe they did to a point, Bob. And that is, well, if you didn't have sufficient evidence, I think, to get a FISA court order, a FISA court order, then who signed off on that? And I believe one of the lawyers at the FBI was held accountable for signing off on that FISA order, and he later admitted that they didn't have sufficient evidence to do that. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I got the impression he was pressured into doing it, or he was part and parcel to this deliberate action, conspiracy, if we want to call it, to go against Trump with higher superior at the FBI. Would you agree with that?
Well, he falsified. Yeah, he pled guilty. He falsified some information. From what I heard recently, he's already got his law license back. I was telling you, these people.
I don't know how you would get your law license back after doing something like that.
Well, if you're in a Democrat area, that's what I'm telling you. This is a flat out conspiracy. Now, I wrote down some notes of major points, which your video kind of showed, but I have some that I'd be happy to.
Go ahead.
So, and you covered some of this. So, okay, one was that this is directly from, an article that quoted the report, but it was a deeply flawed investigation. Those were terms that they used. They said that if they had done an objective and honest assessment of evidence, should have caused the FBI to question not only the predications for Crossfire Hurricane, but also to reflect on whether the FBI was being manipulated for political or other purposes, because obviously the Clinton campaign was paying for all the fake information. And then it says the matter was opened as a full investigation without ever having spoken to the persons who provided the information. And they said the investigation was launched without any significant review of its own intelligence databases or collection and examination of any relevant intelligence from other U.S. intelligence agency entities. And the investigation was started without conducting interviews of witnesses essential to understand the raw information the FBI had received, or using any of the standard analytical tools typically employed by the FBI in evaluating raw intelligence. Now, I just want to make a point that I noticed in the write-ups, they'll say they should have done some preliminary work before they opened a case. Now, every agency is different. And if I had been working on this, apparently, from what I'm reading, the FBI has preliminary cases, then they make it a full investigation. Some agencies, I won't mention which, might just say, we opened a case and we don't find anything, we close it. Not saying, okay, we've crossed the line now we have a much more important case. I think the FBI is much more bureaucratic, and they do that. So I think that's where this is coming from. It wasn't done in the normal manner of FBI cases. There were some other points they pointed out. Said similar Clinton-related controversies were treated by the FBI with caution in comparison. In the case of Clinton, the FBI headquarters in DOJ required defensive briefings to her and to others who appeared to be targets of foreign influence. So that, in other words, we'll say, hey, we're concerned that somebody's reaching out to you. They did not do that for Trump. Why? Because the whole thing was a scam. There was no reason to do that, and they wanted to catch him. So the FBI and DOJ also placed restrictions on Clinton Foundation investigations, and no investigative activities occurred months before the election. Now, of course, Trump, they were after him full time. Now, this report also showed markedly different handling of Trump investigation and the Clinton email server, how they handled that. So there's more. It says within days of the receipt of the allegations, the unvetted and unverified Steele report was used to support a probable cause in the FBI's Foreign Intelligence Security Act, FISA applications. That's the special court to hear classified, to give classified, warrants, targeting former Trump campaign associate Carter Page. All at the same time, the FBI knew the Steele info had also been fed to the media. Now, so the FBI did not and could not corroborate any of the substantive allegations in the Steele report, and the Steele could not produce any corroboration of his false claims, even when they offered him $1 million to do so. Let me stop there for a minute. I have other things, but
I think you made some really good points, because that led me into my next point, and that's about the Steele, the infamous Steele dossier. Which obviously had to be used as basis to get the FISA warrant. So you basically had the legal staff of the FBI chopping off on this thing for whatever reason they felt necessary. And then it goes over to the court. And then the court, you would have thought, would have been the next backstop to potentially put a hold on this thing, but that didn't happen either. So at this point, you've got a what looks like, and I have to be honest with you, I think I tend to be, I want to always believe I'm very objective, that I'm kind of apolitical on types of things like this. But given everything I've read and heard now on everything moving forward, I have now fallen into the conservative camp, into the conservative pile, that this was a deliberate, inside, organized attempt to influence the campaigns and to influence the election and to tilt the table towards the Clinton campaign for a victory. There's no doubt in my mind at this point about that happening, where I did have some doubt on this prior to this final investigation and the points that I saw coming out of this. That, I wanted to see some more evidence, some more information, and now I have it to have reason to believe that this was an organized inside job to influence the election.
Yeah, as far as the FISA court, I've not dealt with them directly, but one thing people need to understand in the DC area, everybody's chummy and buddy. They go to the cocktail parties together, Supreme Court justices and everybody else. They slap each other on the back. And so when they come in there, they've dealt with the same people. It's always going to be people from that office as opposed to Arizona or something. They're going to be coming in presenting these things. They probably believe the FBI was telling them the truth. They relied on them to tell the truth. They, interestingly, as far as I know, haven't, and this is probably my deficiency, I don't know of any of the judges on the FISA court who have been interviewed and publicly, with the interview being publicly released, as to how outraged they were, or were they outraged at all about how they were bamboozled into approving things that weren't properly staked in evidence.
Well, I think you have a point there, and that is we used to have so much trust in the FBI as our highest level of credible law enforcement in this country, okay, that we all felt better that when they said something that it was true, it was credible, and it never had to be challenged. Well, those days are long gone for the FBI. There's too many examples now. Now, I can speak from my own internal workings too at federal agencies to know that I saw things at times when superiors didn't like something that was going on, let's say, from an outside or external force, that they would sometimes put their hand on the table to tilt it in the direction that they felt was right. And that's from a political point of view or from a personal point of view. And with my own eyes, I was able to see this. So what I hear about what the FBI was doing does not terribly surprise me.
Well, the FBI, and this is just a little aside sort of, but going way back, they are extremely jealous of other agencies, jealous of their authority. What they would do in the early days, we're talking about 1980s and things like that, they would oppose inspector generals, criminal investigators getting firearms because they have guns and they didn't think you needed it either. Or they didn't need it either. And of course, all those agencies now have firearms, but they fought it. And this was for their own protection and to do search warrants and arrests. This is how outrageous that agency has been for years.
Yeah, and I think there's a level of arrogance there. And as the superiors there have been there 20, 25 years, that they think they're untouchable. They think they can do whatever they want, when they want, to whom they want, and to influence what they want. And it's very sad to say that. That's not we're not talking about every agent that works for the FBI. We're talking about senior managers now who had a point to influence an election. And because they didn't like a guy like Donald Trump, or they thought Donald Trump might affect how they do their work, they decided in their own, or just from their own political views, they decided that they were going to do something about it, and they were going to have their own dark side club to do that. And that actually does go on at the federal government level. And you know that from your experiences. I know that from my experiences, seeing it with my own eyes at times of what was happening to people, that they don't like. So, it's very disturbing to see this. And the American public, who doesn't sit around, they don't watch programs like this, they very rarely watch 30 minutes of national news a day. I think they're getting the message that there is a problem at our top federal law enforcement agency in this country. And that's very sad to think that way.
It's a serious problem. And I constantly hear conservative presenters, and they'll always go out of their way to say, well, there's a lot of fine FBI agents across the country.
Right.
And I'm saying, who cares? It does not matter when your agency is rotten at the top. It doesn't matter what the good guys are, because the good guys are not rising up. You had a few that were whistleblowers. You saw how they were massacred by the agency who went before Congress. So they shut up and can't do anything. And if they're still accepted service, they could be fired at pretty much at will. I mean, it's not completely at will, but they could be fired, or used to be able to be fired easier than other agencies could. And so the structure of this organization, or any government agency, if it's rotten at the top, it doesn't matter how nice the people are below, because they're powerless.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I did watch a good portion of those live hearings with those FBI whistleblowers. I find their statements very credible. I found their experiences to be very credible, that they detailed, and how they were treated in such a nasty way by the FBI superiors doesn't surprise me at all. The one whistleblower stated, and I think if you heard it or not, stated that when he had brought some of his concerns forward, so he was already in the whistleblower program type situation, to his superiors, they had the arrogance and the nastiness to move him to another field office, where I guess he had to sell his house, pack everything up, put his wife and young daughter, and have them move to the next field office, okay, just out of spite, out of vengeance. And when he got there and checked in, he couldn't even get a cup of coffee yet. And they said, "Oh, by the way, you're on administrative leave now, and you're not going to have any pay. You're not going to have any benefits, and good luck." And took his gun and badge and off he went. I mean, it's outrageous. It's outrageous to even think that somebody would be treated that way, especially when they're under a whistleblower program, where the whistleblower program was set up by the federal government for any federal employee to bring forth concerns. But obviously, after watching what this man and the other two had gone through, it certainly discourages anybody from coming forward, because your life is made a living hell, especially when they pull your security clearance.
Now,
correct?
It's interesting. Yes. That no, they have. There's two sides to every story, at least two, if not others. Okay, what is the FBI side? No one says what their side is. Did this happen? Are they saying, "Oh no, it didn't happen"?
Yeah. Yes or no? Yeah.
Yeah. And these guys were suspended without pay, not with administrative
Not with
leave.
pay, right.
Yeah. And so I would ask the FBI, okay, so when you had him transfer, drive over, sell his house or whatever he had to do, drive over to this other office in another state, did you all of a sudden get new information that was of concern? No.
No, you're exactly right, Bob. It was a devious plan to punish somebody for the problems for the quote problems that they were creating for their superiors. There's no doubt about that, and that should have been looked at as well.
Well, it's worse, because now, or what they revealed was that the FBI is determined, oh, they're not whistleblowers. We define it, and they're not. And so, even though the law defines it, Congress certainly considers them whistleblowers. The FBI says, no. Now, where is the DOJ Inspector General's office, which is supposed to be independent, although they all report to the same idiot that's the Attorney General, which is why nothing is going to happen. And people keep saying, oh, this is being exposed. Something's got nothing. As long as these idiots are in charge, the Democrats are in charge of DOJ, nothing will happen, because they will stop it. Yeah, anything. Biden can take bribes from China. It doesn't matter. Nothing will happen. This is a corrupt country, unfortunately.
Well, you know what? It's sad for me it's sad for any viewers we may have out there, whether it's 1 or 10 or 10,000, it doesn't matter. It's very sad and unfortunate to see our country falling into this dark, dismal hole where we cannot even trust our highest level law enforcement agency in this country. And we've lost this lack of respect and trust in our federal government. And it's sad to say. And we will welcome anybody on this program anytime to debate this issue, to say what we're saying is not true. Okay. And it's just not the way it is. Any closing comments on this?
Yeah, I had a few more
Durham
notes.
report. Yeah.
I thought there was a few more. It says Russian intelligence knew of Steele's investigation, which was hired by Clinton, for Clinton by no later than early July 2016. And Steele's sources may have been compromised by the Russians prior to the Steele reports that were created and throughout the entire investigation. And neither U.S. law enforcement nor intelligence community appears to have possessed actual evidence of collusion at the beginning of their investigation, and the FBI then discounted or willfully ignored material information that did not support the Trump-Russia collusion. Now, I'm not saying this. This is from the report. Steele's dossier claims fell apart, but this was after they were continuously adopted by the FBI in support of its underlying collusion theory. And this is important, I think, and this is my final comment about this, that the ex-Obama Director of National Intelligence, he was over the various intelligence agencies, James Clapper, admitted during this investigation he knew of no direct evidence that would meet the legal standards of conspiracy or collusion by Trump. And Admiral Mike Rogers, who was the Obama NSA director, and John Brennan, who was the Obama CIA director, also had no knowledge of such collusion. Nobody.
But yet, like you say, they went on national TV and continue to fuel the fire.
But like I say, nobody is going to be prosecuted and at all, as long as the Democrats hold power. And unfortunately, if Trump's elected, he appoints the worst people he can find to run agencies, and they won't do anything either. Bob Barr, Jeff Sessions as attorney generals were useless, worse than useless. All right.
Bob, it's just makes my stomach turn, to be honest with you.
I do want to say something.
And I think that's the value of this program is I think, we're trying to throw out issues that the American public should be interested in. We don't throw it out as insiders or inside experts. We throw it out from the normal average Joe American public, so people kind of get an idea of what's going on. And you don't have to take a political side. It's the facts that speak for themselves on what's going on.
Well, any Republican I know, including myself, is discussed with Republicans as well. So people go, "Oh, you just support." Unlike Democrats, who seem to be in lockstep on every issue, no matter how absurd, the Republicans are not. They do not. I was listening to my favorite Boston conservative radio station, and Jim Jordan appeared on there. Everybody used to think Jim Jordan was really hot, fighter and everything. So they asked him, "What about any impeachments for anybody?" And you heard, and there was a long speech of, "Well, I don't know. We have to look at facts." Nothing's going to happen. I can tell you right now, there will be no impeachment unless they're forced to do it by people rising up. But Republicans don't rise up. It's the Republicans won't do anything.
Yeah, it's sad. It's very sad. Okay, we're gonna go move on to another issue that I have. Let me see if I can get this clip up and play it to start us off with. So let's get this up on the screen. And I don't see it, so we're not going to worry about that. So here's the topic. The topic is recently, I think it was last weekend, sometime like this, a group called the Patriot Front. The Patriot Front had a march in the D.C. area. There were, 150 marchers. They were all dressed in khakis. They all looked fairly young. They all looked kind of fairly fit too for Americans. We have a lot of obese people. They had ski masks on, basically all coordinated the same. They had the same hats on. A lot of them had sunglasses on. They were carrying banners. Some of them were carrying shields. They were carrying American flags. And they had this march on Washington.
Weren't the flags upside down? I think the flags were upside down.
The flag was upside down, which is a distress signal, which is, hey, listen, I've seen neighbors. I've seen neighbors, very conservative, extreme conservative neighbors in the areas that I live in that have had their flags upside down since Trump lost the last election.
Well, these were picking the stereotypes, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us what you know about this Patriot Front national group that was in Washington.
Okay, so I guess the short version is nobody will come forward and admit it's a fraud. But it's a complete fraud. It's comical. Conservatives see it as a big joke, and I have some more detailed information. But so far, nobody will come out and just say what they are. But I've been watching them over time. Yeah, they are clearly either if they're not government people dressed up in uniform, they're leftist paid. So here's some of the notes I made. Okay, so they all wear masks. There's which is unusual for conservatives, not unusual for leftists. Antifa is one of the ones, but they all wear the identical masks, by the way, identical outfits. Gee, just like somebody bought all the outfits for them. Now, there's zero media, when we say media, we mean Democrat media, effort to learn who their identities. Nobody says, who are these guys? Follow them, get their car license plates, let's check them out. Nobody wants to know because they know it's fake. Now, the gut feeling of one of these people was the activists are funded by a shadowy left-wing group to discredit, which is probably Soros. And no, there's other billionaires, not just Soros, who fund these kind of people, to discredit legitimate opposition to the left, kind of like the fake white nationalists who showed up at the Glenn Youngkin campaign stop. If you remember that, when Glenn Youngkin was running for the Virginia governorship and he was elected, I saw it. I started laughing. There was a bus. These guys all lined up, and they had their the same kind of outfits on. They had torches, which apparently is supposed to be reflective of Nazis. And from the Charlottesville riot, they had the torches. So they had all little. They dressed themselves up. Well, one was a black guy, so I said, "Well, that's weird." The white nationalist black guy, and then there was a woman. I didn't know there was a woman in the group. There was about 8 or 9 of them. They were eventually identified as being funded by the Lincoln Project, which is the vehemently anti-Trump. I call them fake Republicans, but anyway, they link the Lincoln Project. So that was that. So that's probably who's funding this. We don't really know who's funding it now. And then, so the question is, why would the government do this, or why would go along with it? Well, if you remember the Gretchen Whitmer fake kidnapping that occurred in Michigan, where half of the people participating were FBI operatives. And I read a lot of details back then about this. This is before the election, by the way, where the election that Trump lost. And it was funny because you go, okay, I know this is fake. And then started interviewing some of the people. And they said that, well, these people kept pressing us to do this. We didn't want to do it. So anyway, I guess my point is, if people go, oh, the FBI would never do this. Well, they had a Russian collusion hoax for years. And they obviously were January 6th. They admitted they were in the January 6th crowd. They won't identify how many people were there. Then there was the Justice for J6 rally in D.C. in September 2021, which was also, everybody was warning the conservatives, don't go. It's a setup by the feds. And my favorite picture was about 20 guys standing around. This is where I think they were the DOD guys with their short hair and their tight shorts and all looked identical with their guns hidden, I guess. And they were obvious government agents. They wouldn't do that? They wouldn't do this? No, I mean, you can't, it's so absurd. So then in December 2021, these same guys came out again, the same people dressed up in the same, and they got out of U-Hauls, marched around the National Mall and got back in the U-Hauls. Did anybody question who rented the U-Hauls? Why are they in U-Hauls? Who are these people? So some people are saying it's an FBI operation. I don't doubt that. I mean, I don't know, but they said that then February 22nd, they had a rally that wasn't even mentioned on their group website. There was a website. They said it was a planned event. They claimed in the press. There was nothing even on their own website that there was such an event. And no other right-wing group all wear masks. None. Now, no other right conservative groups know who these people are. Now, if there was such a right-wing group, you don't think that somebody would come forward and go, yeah, I've met these guys, they're really wacko. Like people know there's American Nazi groups and stuff like that. No one, which National Front, I guess they call themselves, nobody knows who these people are. Nobody even on the conservative side. Nobody. So there's no evidence, zero evidence by anybody that this is a right-wing group. None. None. That's very important. And then all of a sudden, just recently in May here, just as soon as Biden said that white supremacy is a scourge on the nation, magically on May 23rd, the Patriot Front jumps out on cue in parades, and they're led by police into the subways. So I don't know how much evidence people need, but there's the evidence that we have, and circumstantial is strong that it's all BS.
Well, where do I stand? Where does William B. Strong stand on this issue? Bob, I think I cannot support your position on this at this point.
Well, my position is either left-wingers or the government, one or the other or both. We don't know.
That's what I mean. I'm not there yet, Bob. I am not there yet.
You will be?
It takes me, it takes me a while to get there, if I get there. But I want to go back to a couple of your points, and your points being this: you're falling into that conspiracy theory again, that conspiracy theory group, that this is a sham, this is a fake, this is organized by the federal government left. Okay, and you made some interesting points that the FBI could be directing this. I just can't eat all of that, Bob, because I can't see this entire dark state, where the whole government under this president is totally orchestrating everything.
Well, so the Russian
that's going on, because I don't believe that. I think this group is affiliated with white supremacy. I think they are a group that is a white supremacy type of group. I think their leader has clearly been identified. He's been arrested several times. He doesn't wear a mask, okay, because he's looking for the publicity in that regard. I think that the police protection they had a valid permit to march, and so I think the police were extra cautious to make sure they got in and out of the area as careful as possible, so there weren't any problems. Now, I'm not an advocate for them. I'm not a member of them. I don't even know who they are in all that regard. But to see that they're a leftist funded organization to portray conservative white, I'm there.
Okay. Keep in mind that it appears, when I was doing my research, it appears, hold on, I'm not going to bring you back up here. I lost you for a second. Oh, yeah, there you are. That there may be some organization, I think this had to do with the website issue, that may actually use that name, that may actually be some right-wing tiny group. That's not these guys. It appears they've hijacked the name and they're marching around. Who's paying for all the U-Hauls? That takes money.
Well, wait a minute. Now, when you make a statement, I'm going to stop you. Now, you're saying potentially they hijacked the name. Well, why wouldn't the people that have the name, why wouldn't they come out in the press and say, we don't even know who these guys are? They stole our name. I haven't heard that.
I haven't heard that either, but I've heard that.
So you're saying you're making a statement like that. But you haven't heard anything. Why would you make a statement like that?
Okay. It's interesting you will say that you consider this conspiracy theory rather than conspiracy facts. Facts would be the things that I mentioned that were occurring. I had some opinions also in there, but you're saying, but without any evidence whatsoever, none, zero, that they are white right-wing group.
But I don't see any facts.
So is that a conspiracy theory?
I love facts. I'm the doubting Thomas. I've got to see the holes in the hand.
But where are your facts?
No, I don't have any facts.
So you should
I'm
say,
asking you, what are the facts besides what we see on the news, which, okay, I know has got problems as well. But what you're saying that you wouldn't doubt that there was a mixture of these are a left-leaning group who are masquerading as extreme conservative white nationals. What evidence do you have to support that?
I just did. I just gave it to you. Plus, one of the guys, when they had the camera on him, he was doing all the marching, and then they turned the camera off. He thought the camera was off, but his other camera on. He goes, "Sig effing Heil," or Heil.
Well,
Yes.
of course, any protest group does that.
No,
All
no,
protest
no.
group play to the press and the
No,
photographers. That goes on at both sides.
According to this article that I was reading, it said that he thought it was off at that point. He was like mocking the whole operation, like he was obviously playing a role. Everything is about these guys playing a role. The whole thing is a joke. They're marching around. They don't actually, no one knows who they are. Why do no conservative groups know who they are? But all of a sudden, they dress up in the identical uniforms that somebody is paying for. They come in U-Hauls, and they go in U-Hauls that somebody is paying for. I don't know why you would move in a U-Haul, but it sounds really weird. I guess they load them up.
It doesn't require a lot of money to rent a U-Haul.
No, but who would travel in a U-Haul? Why not a bus? Why not, so you could track them. The whole thing is outrageous. I come from an investigative background, so I try to put together things.
Well, so do I.
So I'm using that, and I'm looking, and I keep in my mind about the Russian collusion hoax that went on for years, the kidnapping hoax that went on that was not a real kidnapping thing. All these things that the Democrats have done to try to make conservatives look bad, and why would a right-wing group come out as soon as Biden makes a speech? They already were organized, they already were ready, they already knew he was going to talk about white supremacy, and they start marching. I think it was the same day or the next day. I think it was the same day. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. No one who really looks at this with a critical eye thinks this is anything other than a hoax.
Well, I may be one of those guys. Okay, right now I show up on that side that there's clearly not enough evidence to me to support anything other than that they really are affiliated with more of a white supremacy movement. I think they're an insufficient group of people that may have certain very extreme conservative beliefs. I think they're irrelevant to the biggest problems in this country. I will not totally dismiss. I don't rule anything out until I do see evidence. So I can't rule out your statement that they could be. This could be a deliberate plan, a deliberate operation being performed by the left to embarrass, to bring pressure on Trump, to bring pressure on the GOP, that the GOP is the party of white supremacy. I don't totally dismiss your point, but I don't have any evidence to support it either.
Well, that's not the only reason they've come out. I mean, right now, Biden always brings up racism when he's trying to take away from the Hunter Biden or his destruction of our economy or whatever's going on at the time that makes him look bad. All of a sudden, white supremacy, white racism, that's what he does. And they're
that's what their party runs on, Bob. I don't think that's a surprise. They are the party of minorities. They are the party that their whole base is about attracting and holding minority voters. So of course that's a point that they're going to make.
Their whole party is based on deluding the minorities into believing that this great racism that honestly, the conservatives I know, we don't know anybody that's like that. They always say racism everywhere. Where? It's not anywhere. But they are saying this stuff.
Of course. I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
They always come out to create issues that take away the news from what Biden is doing wrong. And it's funny to watch. I mean, you can't, what's happened in the last 4 years, no one would ever imagine it 10, 15 years ago. But now I can accept easily, and the COVID scams that went on that I knew were wrong way before you. Of course, you take longer to you'll find that I'm right on this one too. And I knew the Russian collusion hoax was a hoax early on, and I was right. And it wasn't just me. I'm just listening to conservative media and make my own decisions based on the facts that I see. But you can't just wait for, I saw the gun go off and I saw the guy fall down. It's not always going to be like that in politics.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay. we're going to move on. And if we get more facts on any of these topics
Sure.
of significance, then we're going to roll them into programs, as highlights. Okay. Because I think follow-up is what gets me more interested in things than just the story. And too much of our media is, here's the story, you never see any follow-ups of what happened. So we'll keep that in mind. Last topic, and this is a short one. I want your take on this before we leave the program tonight. And that is on, what's his name? Mr. Penny, Daniel Penny. He was on the subway in New York, and apparently there was a gentleman on there that was harassing people, potentially, maybe that's the word, or he was annoying people, or he was causing some issues on the subway. So Mr. Penny, an ex-Marine, and a couple of other people were trying to let's say, detain, subdue, there you go, him until the subway police could show up. Unfortunately, the subject of this matter became a victim, and he died during this detainment, okay, before the police arrived. What's your take on this?
I have an interesting take. Okay, so yes, the guy had and I
forgot to say, and now Mr. Penny is being charged by the DA of New York City.
Yeah, well, of course, the quote unquote victim has a long rap sheet of attacking people and doing stuff, and he was harassing people on the subway. That's true. However, and I want Penny to get off on this because the guy was a scumbag. But just because you're a scumbag, you have to do certain things to really maybe be held by, a chokehold, maybe being surrounded and pushed back. No one would have arrested Penny and the others probably for pushing him away, keeping him away. And then if the guy attacked him, then defend yourself. But and again, I'm not trying to defend the other side, saying that he should be prosecuted. It was unfortunate. He probably thought that I'm guessing that the chokehold was benign in that it would keep him down, but I don't know what he was taught in the Marines. They use chokeholds for probably much different reasons with terrorists and other people that they're fighting. I don't know, so I don't say. And unfortunately, I'm sure he was doing what he thought was the right thing. So you have a good Samaritan. However, they're going to slam him because they've chosen to slam him with saying, he was not punching out people, as far as I know, on the subway. He was in their face. He was obnoxious. But why were you putting a chokehold on him? Why wouldn't you pushing him away or something like that?
Yeah. I am a really tough opponent of law enforcement. Not opponent. I mean, an advocate.
Okay.
I think the issue here for me is, I think Mr. Penny now is, he's going to get taken through the ringer on this. He, however, has now on a crowd fundraiser has amassed an amount of money for his legal defense. I think that is a record amount of money. It's in the millions of dollars already.
Last I heard, 2 million.
Yeah, which shows that there are a lot of people on his side. There are a lot of people supporting his stance on this, and how the death occurred is going to be come out in the long run. Was this there is a choke position, and I'm no expert on this either, I guess, where you can choke a guy out into unconsciousness and then they come back to life. I don't know if he was trying to do that. He wasn't trying to do that. I don't know what happened to cause the death here, but it's unfortunate because this ex-Marine now is going to be dragged through. Now, I also heard that the family of the victim is calling for the arrest of the 2 other people that were helping Daniel Penny during this incident, for their arrest as well.
At least one of which is black.
Exactly. But I think what this is, and I've always been a person over the years that if I saw something wrong, I would my instinct was to get involved. My instincts now over the last few years has been don't get involved, because if you do, and I hate to say this, it really disturbs me to say this, is if you get involved, even for the right reasons, if something goes wrong, you, even with your right reasons and great character, and you've been law abiding your entire life, you can be dragged through the justice system. Okay.
Well,
and that can be a very painful and a bankruptcy experience. And it sickens me to say that we, as the law abiding citizens, have to stand and not help others who might be in distress.
now, I think one conservative commentator said it best that you have to come to the conclusion now. There are two types of justice. There's the Democrat areas that have their justice system, and there's basically Republican. There might be some Democrat ones that still have justice. Who knows? And if you're in those Democrat areas, especially the super liberal ones, New York City is a good example. You will be prosecuted if you try to even defend yourself. You have to be aware that this is not the justice system that you would have in Florida. Where I am, you'd probably be fine. And so when you realize that, when you're in those areas, he said, comport yourself appropriately, because you will be subject to their justice, which is not the same as Republican justice in many places. Now, I still am troubled. Yes, the victim was saying things. I just remembered. I think he was saying, I don't care what happens to me, I'll do this or that. He was making statements, but I'm not sure. And I'm, I'm pro, the Marine, but Mr. Penny, but I'm worried about this thing about was he on the ground? Why did you subdue him? Had he actually punched anybody? Had he done anything? And I may be wrong. Maybe there was more to it. I know he made verbal threats and scared people. And it's easy for me to Monday morning quarterback. I understand that. And doesn't matter what I think. What I'm saying is what they might be able to produce against him. So if they say you put him on the ground, even if you didn't kill him, why was he on the ground in a chokehold? Why was he there? Because he hadn't attacked anybody. You could stand next to him and protect the other people. You could stand in front of him. You could maybe get away with pushing him away. I don't know. Even that might have been an offense.
Well, one of the things about defense cases is that you have to basically say, I felt my life was being threatened. Secondary, you may be able to say, I felt that this individual was threatening someone's life or was going to hurt them. Let's say a woman, and I understand there was a woman, at least one woman that felt threatened or potentially felt threatened, that I, as the Good Samaritan Act, and I don't know if New York or every state has Good Samaritan Acts, that I acted as a Good Samaritan in defense of another who I felt was being threatened. And so I hope this trial is on court TV. I will watch it because I think it's going to be a fascinating case. I do not believe this Marine Mr. Penny is going to plead this thing out, which the DA, I'm sure, hopes he'll try to plead it out. I don't think he's going to do it. I just don't think he's going to do it.
I think he has hope. His hope, I'm sure. The hope is that black people on the subway and other minorities, whatever, and the guy who is assisting him will come forward and speak in his behalf, which may have an impact on the largely minority jury that's going to be there. They only have to convince one not to go forward, but then they'll have a mistrial, and then they'll try him again, and they will try him again. This could go on.
They're definitely going to be pulling in anybody and all witnesses, be it voluntarily or subpoena or whatever. There's going to be no doubt that there will be a lot of witnesses coming to this trial.
So hopefully they will say, I felt my life was threatened. Of course, they'll be coached before my life was threatened. And if they're not saying this now and they say it later, that's not going to be good. If they just say, I felt threatened, what does that mean? Well, I thought he might hit me. Well, that's not your life. So you can
Well,
deadly.
I don't know about that, Bob. I understand what you're saying, and when we get into the legalities, it is tough. There's some
It's
fine
complicated.
line, but you know what? It's complicated. But when you feel, you could just, I can't imagine. I'm sitting there, and this guy who's a nut, he's got a record as long as your arm. Of course, we're not focusing on that, and it may not be part of the trial because a lot of times the past can't be brought forward.
That's correct.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so on. But you've got a nut. We've seen it on the sidewalks where you could be walking down the street, some guy just comes by you and punches you in the back of the head. You don't know when a life-threatening blow, whether it's a death blow or a brain injury, could knock you down just from some nut on a subway or on a sidewalk. So, for a good Samaritan, or good Samaritans in this world who want to help others, what kind of message is being sent now to them, like myself, to back off?
Well, I feel like I'm being Bruce tonight on this issue. So here's I'm sorry, that guy is a friend of mine. But I feel more like William Strong tonight because here's the thing. New Yorkers who will be on the jury will say, yeah, I hear people making threats on the street all the time. I understand your example.
And they understand their environment is very crime-ridden right now, too.
Oh, yeah, right. But what I'm saying, okay, stay with me. So they're going to say that we hear people threatening us all the time. And yes, in the case of the guy that punches, yes, that could be very dangerous, but you can't kill him before he does the hit. So if they don't have any people on the subway that goes, well, I was scared he might hit me. Did he make it? Did he try to hit you? No. So you were just scared. Well, lots of people on the jury will go, I'm scared all the time on the subway. Wackos are in there. There's lots of wackos making statements while, I've seen the videos of them yelling at people, saying things, and they have not been taken down and, held to the ground.
Right.
I think it would be, why did you feel you needed to subdue him in that manner, which had a risk? Or that, I'm sorry, we knew your intentions were fine, but you committed a homicide. Too bad for you. And, we feel that, yes, you were trying to save people. And had you not killed him, we probably wouldn't have done anything, but you did kill him. I'm sorry, you made a mistake.
Okay, you're in New York. They call you for jury duty. You're put in the box and they start questioning you about whether you should serve on the jury. What would you feel you could serve on a jury and be objective?
Yes, I think I could, but that's, maybe somebody else would say I couldn't be. I could be, but I mean, if
I understand your point from a legal standpoint. I understand what you're saying.
because I wouldn't want someone grabbing me and holding me down because I was having an argument with somebody on the subway. I would not like that, especially if I died. I guess I wouldn't have it.
No, you're right. Or it's like, and I'll just bring this point up as we conclude our program tonight, is this. As of 1 July, the state of Florida, you can have any citizen in the state of Florida, Florida resident can have a concealed weapon on his body without a permit, without a carry permit. The question is, and it kind of gets to this point, if they see an action going down and they pull their firearm and fire and shoot somebody, be it a perpetrator or the bullet goes by and hits someone else on the sidewalk, they're going to be held legally responsible for that shooting.
Yes.
And what is your quick impression now? We've got about 1-2 minutes left. Quick impression of the new law in Florida.
Okay, well, it's 20 now. I think it's up to 27 states have this now, and there's been no Wild West problems with it. Had there been, they would never have been able to pass it. Also, we've already had in Florida that you can carry the gun concealed in your car without a permit for years. And before that came into effect, we could carry it openly. But then Janet Reno had something to do with that. And anyway, so that when they changed it completely 180 degrees so that you have to have it concealed now, as of many years ago, instead of openly carried. But no license.
And I hope the people of Florida understand when you're carrying a weapon on your body, there's certain restrictions of where you can take that weapon. So they better read the law carefully.
And that's the same as all those other states that passed it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's going to do it for tonight. Bob,
Okay. Can I say one other thing about the penny thing?
Sure, go ahead.
My statements tonight are based on all that I know right now. I'm hoping there'll be more evidence coming out that there were true serious threats to people. I don't know that, so I can't go there. And so I'm hoping that there'll be other people to provide much testimony, that not just compassionate testimony, but testimony of, yes, this guy was a threat. He was waving his fist in my face, and I'm an old lady, and I would have died if he hit me. Something to help him. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, I think it was a good discussion about the law and what you can and cannot do. You can be a helper, you can be a good Samaritan, but you can't kill somebody in the action of that, because when you do that, you open up a whole new book. And in that book, you could be charged criminally and you could be found guilty. So
even for an accident,
even for somebody that doesn't have a clean, sterling white reputation,
right,
or it could have an extensive police record, it's immaterial. You cannot just take justice into your own hands and decide who dies and who lives.
Oh, well, let me just say this. You made a point just there. I want to say one reason the past doesn't matter as far as this, in my view, is that nobody there knew this guy, as far as I know. Nobody knew that he had a past. So to now bring in, and I'm no liberal, but I'm just saying to bring in, go, well, he had a past, yeah, but you didn't know that.
You didn't know that. No, you
so
didn't.
You couldn't rely on that.
Yeah. Well, and you can't rely on that in a court either, because most of the time that history doesn't come in for the case.
It would matter if you knew the police were looking for somebody and you were a citizen, you found the person in a bar and you go, there's that guy, and you try to get him. You know the guy's bad. So you already have some information, but that's different.
Well, I think it's going to be a fascinating case to follow, and there'll be definitely lessons learned. I'm not sure it's going to help Americans help other Americans moving forward, though. So, okay, that's it for tonight. That's it for tonight for Defense of America. We want to thank any viewers we have out there listening to us. This is your network as well as ours. We're here to express thoughts and comments. We're not insiders. We don't always have all the facts, and sometimes we have little facts, and that's why we discuss. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, but that's the nature of our program. Thank you for joining us tonight. Like and subscribe if you can, and we'll see you down the road during our next show. Thanks for joining us. Good night, and be safe.